happening with the pump fake and one dribble inside to the long two, and he makes it. That's been his game his whole career. But look at him smiling. We go, my bad. The long two.
Welcome to another episode of The Long Two. I am Pete Rogers. He is Natty Wallach, and we are a Carmelo Stanthony podcast and occasionally talk fantasy basketball. Natty, how you doing today?
I'm okay, Pete. How are you?
I am doing swell. I had an initial plan for this show coming into it. We were initially going to talk kind of teams that were knocked out of the playoffs, what they could do this offseason to help bring them back to a place of contention. But then we had a very exciting Heat Bucks game and a very exciting Game 7 Thunder Rockets game, which put Natty on the sauce so hard that Natty then texted me this whole new reconstructed NBA that is formulating in his mind. So I figured, scrap all of the notes that we have, scrap all of the ideas, get rid of the past plan. New plan is we're taking a deep dive into the mind of Natty Wallach and embracing this new NBA that he has percolating in his mind.
I would just like to shout out to Beer. They helped me last night. You've always been there for us. Thank you.
It's Beer and Scott Foster.
Dude, did you see the quote that he told Chris Paul before last night's game that he had also officiated Chris Paul's last exit in a game? It's terrible. We should not know refs' names other than for being good people or great at their jobs, and that's not why we know Scott Foster's name.
Well, and it immediately follows the Heat Bucks game where they won, the Heat won on a Jimmy Butler free throw because he was fouled, yes, by the letter of the law he was fouled by Giannis, but then there was also an earlier foul on. It was just the Heat Bucks game ended with two controversial calls by the refs. And then, of course, when you take the worst thing possible is when you have just an amazingly entertaining basketball game and comes down to the wire and then it's decided because the ref can't fucking keep the whistle out of his mouth.
The problem with the Thunder Rockets game is that the refs also know that certain players on those teams are going to be trying to, get fouls that maybe they shouldn't be getting anyway. So they ask for it a little bit, but Foster is you can just see his stats with certain teams. Yeah. And it seems like he really, let me not say it that way. Let me say this. It seems like he officiates certain people and certain teams differently.
Yes.
So I don't know if it's because of geography. I mean, it doesn't seem like it could be geographic now because everyone's in Orlando. Maybe he just hated reffing in Oklahoma City and Houston, but it seems like if we give him the benefit of the doubt, it's peculiar to say the least. And these are numbers spread over years and years and years of officiating. So the NBA should seriously look at it. Also, get Scott Javie out of the broadcast because he always just stands up for whatever ridiculous thing the refs just did. And can we
talk about Doris Burke going?
That's exactly what I was just
with him.
Okay, cool. I was wait, 100%. I wasn't too drunk, right? That happened.
No,
Doris I could
Burke
not disagree with you more.
Right, it was from the top rope, let's bring this fucker down, and all of Twitter was yes, Doris, do it.
She's such a saint. She is beloved by everybody in NBA and in basketball, really.
So I've in the process of converting my household from a football fandom to a basketball fandom. I've been making Becca watch these postseason games with me, and
nice.
And so anytime Doris Burke is commentating, I lose it. She's just so good at her job, and she shouldn't have to have that qualifier, right? But I shouldn't have to say that Doris Burke, make a big point that Doris Burke is really good at her job, but she's really fucking good at her job. And so Becca is whoa, why do you love Doris Burke so much? And I was just Doris Burke is RBG to liberals as like to the NBA Twitter community. Like NBA Twitter just fucking loves Doris Burke and will protect her at all costs, and rightfully so.
She knows how to present an argument right off the cuff that does seem very reminiscent of an elite attorney. And, you know, Doris Burke works for the broadcast partners and for the NBA. So she's not going to talk shit. What she did last night was respectfully disagree and then explain why.
Right.
And when you said, like, technically Giannis fouled that last play, it's like, yeah, technically he did. And if the bad foul call beforehand hadn't occurred, then maybe people wouldn't have been so pissed off. But
right.
Like, Doris Burke is at a level where she's so legit, you know, her job isn't in jeopardy when she says, you know, I believe that you're wrong, especially when she can back it up right in the moment.
Right. No, she is exceptional at what she does. And it's just always nice to hear someone in the broadcast booth like side with you, the angry person on the couch sitting at home yelling at your TV. And Doris is like, I agree with you, all of those watching from home. This was yes, by the letter of the law, a foul, but are you really going to call that in a, you know, make or break-ish game 2 on the you know, future MVP, 2-time MVP.
You also know that she's stood up for the refs and the NBA infrastructure beforehand. Like she represents a kind of not pure basketball, but like she's
no, I agree with that. I think that's a good way to describe it.
Like she's so enthusiastic about the games and the players and the machinations that go on in basketball and about just the gameplay. But she's also, it seems like, a real fan. And sometimes she's like, that's bullshit. Like, yeah. I get it, NBA. But we both know that's fucking bullshit.
Yep, 100%.
And people appreciate that.
Yep. Let's dive into the mind of Natty Wallach and look at this reconstructed
turbulent seas today, Pete.
Well, because of the fact that at the way things are currently set, right? We have the Thunder just went home. Mm-hmm. We have the Blazers are home. We have the Jazz just went home. We have who else that's notable?
Dallas went home.
Dallas went home. There you go. That's the only other one. Who cares about what happened in the East?
I mean, Indiana is an interesting team that should be in the playoffs next year.
Yeah.
Like that's a team that has talent.
But so there's a lot
legit.
There's a lot of and then add that to the fact that both the Raptors and the Bucks are down 0-2 in their respective series. Like there's a potential for this offseason to yet again be another just like absolute chaos, especially with the players who are set to hit free agency, players who are set to be on the last year of their deals, players who are suddenly becoming a little more mobile, shall we say, in terms of you know, finding a new team to play with. So there's a lot of potential for big name dudes to be on the move yet again this offseason. If the Bucks, even if the Bucks win a game, but if they lose 4-1, I mean, is that where we want to start? Do you want to start with the potential of Giannis leaving, or do you want to start with I know one of your first thoughts was do you do a sign and trade? Does Philly and Toronto do a sign and trade Fred VanVleet for Ben Simmons?
Oh yeah.
Fred VanVleet and Norm fucking Powell for Ben Simmons was your exact quote.
Right. That's right. I love Norm Powell. Ben Simmons in Toronto, to me, seems just so goddamn sexual. Like him, Pascal, OG. That's just such an amazing front court, I think. And I feel like he and Kyle Lowry would sort of play off each other extremely well. FVV is the man. VanVleet's great. They need shooting in Philly. And Tobias Harris has such a massive contract that it seems like maybe it would be, if you want to make the team better, then maybe it seems like you would need to trade Embiid or Simmons just to be able to get a good return. Like, I'm not really sure if you'd get a great return for Toby back, even though I like him a lot, and it's not his fault.
I think you're right. Simmons and Embiid are really the only. If the Sixers are looking for like a franchise piece, you got to move one of Simmons or Embiid, right?
And that's tough to do.
Right. No, I like this. I mean, we spent a lot of time on this show talking about where Ben Simmons could fit, who needs to play along Ben Simmons for him to be at his best, and who needs to play along with Joel Embiid to be at his best. And I do think that an actual guard who can shoot threes and, isn't uber ball dominant would pair really nicely along Joel.
That team, Philadelphia, I mean, the front office is getting shook up apparently, but they just made so many bad decisions. And, like they told the whole world that they wanted Matisse Thybulle in the draft. And so Boston was able to take advantage of that. And they knew how important JJ Redick was to the team. Like they knew
that one will forever. That has to haunt them till their dying days. Why you let JJ go is beyond me.
So whatever, everybody makes mistakes all the time. And also, let's say this, if Ben Simmons had been playing, maybe Philadelphia would have advanced. Maybe we'd be having a completely different conversation. I mean, the series would have looked different, I think.
That's fair.
It's just such a fucking shame, man, because I do believe that you can have a good team with Simmons and Embiid. You just have to make sure that everybody else can shoot. And I don't feel like that's so fucking hard. Like I liked Josh Richardson. He didn't do that well this year. Like he just didn't fit in. They need another playmaker. They need someone who can, create offense and can shoot.
Yep.
So it seems like Elton Brand, the GM, wants to keep Simmons and Embiid, and that's great. I don't know if you're going to be able to get much in return for Josh Richardson, if you can trade Toby, if you would want to. But I don't think that they can keep things the same and expect better success.
Right. Especially with the Celtics seemingly like this being their, not floor, but like, I mean, Jalen, Tatum,
they're on an elevator.
Better.
They're not even like there is no ceiling. They're on the escalator going up.
So the Sixers, there's no way the Sixers can go into next year being like, we're going to run it back and hope for the best with the healthy Ben Simmons when the Celtics are going to be better than they are currently next year.
You would, knock wood. Jesus Christ, jinx yourself, Pete. My God, what if they blow it up? What if they're like, what, man?
God damn it.
We're going to Mookie Betts this shit, and we're just getting rid of our dudes.
Boston,
let's get a bunch of draft picks again.
God, that would be awful. Oh, we would. Yeah, that would be. I don't know if Boston fans. I mean, we are one of the most sympathetic fan bases. We've had so much hardship thrust upon us.
Whoa. You used to be sympathetic, and then the 21st century occurred, and now no one likes you. Nobody likes you.
It would be.
You've had all four.
Yeah.
Fuck you. Yeah. I hope you get designated out or whatever the hell they do in soccer. Just like kick them to the curb, man. We don't.
It would be a tough 2 years though if the Red Sox traded Mookie and the Celtics traded Tatum. Like it would just be that would burn Boston.
I don't think you can trade Tatum.
There's no way you can trade Tatum.
Luka Doncic. I think that's the only person where like both teams would actually be like, oh, okay, I'm not going to put the phone down, but I'm going to like sit here and think for a second.
You have to like, right. You have to think about it.
But they wouldn't do it. I don't think either team would do it.
No team would do it.
Like, I don't think I would trade Luka for I'd ask for something else. I shouldn't. That's dumb. They're both great.
They're both so good.
I can't believe we get those two and Giannis. And I mean, there's just so much.
Stupid how good this. Right. It's stupid how good the best players in this, how young the best players in this league are right now.
And then you have the New York Knicks and the Orlando Magic and the Detroit Pistons and the Washington D.C. Wizards.
Well, you fixed the Knicks in this alternate NBA universe. You've fixed the Knicks with Russell Westbrook going there, and then somehow
I returned the Knicks to their normal ways, which is that they have one overpriced dude who's sort of good and a star, and then a bunch of other overpriced guys that aren't helpful.
Well, the catalyst for trading Russell Westbrook in your NBA world is that would Giannis want to play with Harden? And could Giannis after the Bucks, if the Bucks lose to the Heat, even if it's a close series, like 0-2 is tough. And I saw, I don't want to forget this. Richard Jefferson. Did you see Richard Jefferson's quote?
No.
His hot take. What if Giannis is Scottie Pippen and he needs a Michael Jordan?
Oh, shut up. That's ridiculous. No, you say that to get responses. That's not first of all, the fact that Scottie Pippen is considered a 2 is only because he played with the 1.
Right.
That's everybody's at least at best a 2 compared to him, except
Scottie Pippen
for
was
Bill
a top
Russell
5
and Kareem.
player in the league when he was at his height.
Dude, they went to the playoffs without Jordan. He's a singular talent who, by the way, would play extremely well in today's
He
NBA.
would translate so well to today's NBA.
Oh, he'd be one of the 5 best players. I mean, I'd rather have Scottie Pippen than AD, I think.
Ooh, I like it.
But some of this, so the Bucks seem to miss Eric Bledsoe's defense so fucking hard, dude. It is. I mean, George Hill's out there doing his best, but those young guards that they have, they're not there. They're not good enough to do this. And Middleton's doing what he can, and Giannis is doing what he can. I think some of this is the coaching.
Yeah,
Spoelstra is way better than
100%. And I used to be all on Spoelstra's ass during the Heatles because I was just like, "What in reality are you actually doing here, Spoelstra?" But he is a very good coach, and I think it's just another thing where it's like the textbook or the playbook with Giannis has been discovered. People know what this Bucks offense is and how to at least slow it down. And you need to change your shit up. Like, it was the same thing with Billy Donovan, where I was like, what are we watching here, Thunder? Like, do something different. Do something. Use your
that
advantage.
Does not include Dort shooting the most shots in the game.
Right.
In the game.
Shout out for being the only other under 23 player to score 25 points in a playoff game along with LeBron and Kobe. So there's that to add to
Big
your
Lou.
resume.
It's great.
Okay,
so you should run it back.
And so I think that if Houston had lost that game 7, D'Antoni would have been fired and they would have had a whole big existential questions there. Because he won that game 7 and because they made it to round 2, D'Antoni, I think, is going to keep his job. But I feel like I don't know if they're going to make it past the Clips. Is that who they're playing?
No, they're playing the Lakers.
Playing the Lakers.
It's Clippers, Denver. So It's what we wanted.
Yep. But so I don't think they're going to make it past the Lakers. And if you need to make some sort of big move, and it's just, I don't understand why the idea with Harden has always been get him another ball dominant guard. Like, that just doesn't make sense to me. What makes sense is, and it didn't work, right? They tried it with Dwight Howard and it didn't work because Dwight Howard had his own shit to deal with. But getting a big or just like a paint presence seems to make the most sense. And Giannis, this is a pipe dream, right? Who knows if there's anything that can actually come to fruition of this, but Giannis and Harden seems like a duo that will finally benefit the two of them who can play alongside each other to the point where you'll get the best out of Harden and the best out of Giannis, as opposed to always putting Harden with this ball dominant guard, CP3 and Russell Westbrook, where it's is that what brings out the best in Harden? I don't think so.
The things that Houston has committed themselves to, and I assume that the math that they're looking at suggests why they should do these things, is that they have their team construction has no ceiling, but it has an extremely low floor. If they're going to take the most threes in the playoffs in history and they make them, then yeah, they're probably going to beat everybody. But when they go cold, they can lose to anybody. And the reason that they don't like having a traditional big is that they want to be able to switch everything. And that has been helpful in a lot of stuff. Giannis would be able to do that. Giannis would also be able to run an offense when Harden was sitting, and Harden can run the offense when Giannis is sitting. So they'd be more complementary than having another backcourt player, I think.
I mean, you want to switch everything, but you've seen other teams have a quote-unquote more traditional big and be able to switch everything. So it depends on who that big is, but I do think that the 100% committing yourself to this 3-point game with no backup plan it's proven itself to be foolish once you get into the playoffs, in my opinion, right? It's phenomenal during the regular season when you're playing teams once at a time. But for a 7-game series, if you get cold, that's a game that you've now lost because you have no internal presence that you've like built this. And so like honestly, it seems crazy to like even spend this much time talking about it because ultimately probably the Bucks will make it a competitive series and may even come back from it and be able to make it into the Eastern Conference Final. And Giannis will probably stick around in Milwaukee for one more run after this season, regardless of what happens. However, like Giannis is that perfect guy that would fit into D'Antoni's like whole master plan of an interior presence, a guy who could play every single position defensively, a guy who has, can rebound, play defense, protect the rim, while also his 3-point game is developing. I can say that as nicely as possible. And so it would make the Rockets, I would take the Rockets far more seriously as like a legit, holy fuck, this is one of the best teams in the NBA come playoff time, come like they need to be considered a top 3 title contender if they had just it doesn't need to be Giannis, but someone who can reliably give them an internal inside presence when the 3-point game just isn't there, because it's proven time and time again come playoffs it's not always there.
I agree with that, and I think some of that is the coaching. I'm not a huge fan of D'Antoni, and they don't call plays. And I think that's one of the problems with Houston is that when they go cold, they just keep doing what they're doing. And, they don't try to change within the game. There's no excuse for Westbrook having the ball at the end of that game when Harden should have had it the whole time. What is the point of having James Harden if he doesn't have the ball at the end of the game? And this can't be some sort of like Jedi mind trick. I'm just, D'Antoni's just trying to give confidence to Westbrook. Like, no. This is the playoffs. You have to use Harden correctly. And he is correctly at the end of the game with the ball in his hands. Like, that's why he's there. That's why he's supposed to be there. That's why they're so dangerous.
Yeah.
The fact that Houston's sort of like sabermetrics in baseball, where they suddenly discovered strikeouts don't matter as much so long as you're trying to hit home runs. So launch angle changes, and now everyone's just trying to hit it as hard as they possibly can and fuck the strikeouts. That's what Houston's doing too. They said fuck rebounds, fuck having a 7-footer.
Mm-hmm.
We'd rather have the points than play conservatively because we think our uppercut, our big swing, is big enough to rock with anybody. And everybody strikes out. But all we need is a little bit of luck. Houston is notorious for being unlucky at the exact wrong times. I would also like to say Chris Paul was a better fit with Harden than I think people remember, but it's because he got injured at the end of the year. Yeah. And they also seem to hate each other's guts. So maybe that didn't help either. But it's not like Harden is some weird player. He just does what he does extremely well. Maybe the best that anyone's done it throughout history. So you shouldn't try to replicate that. You should try to complement that.
Yeah. And I think that's the thing that's always perplexed me, is it seems like that hasn't been the ultimate goal. And I'm sure he probably had some say in the Russell Westbrook move, given that they're friends. Like, I don't want to put that all on Houston to be like, why the fuck did you trade for Westbrook when, I'm sure Harden was like, hey, go get my bro. But it does seem to me that we have seen time and time again the Rockets hit the playoffs and just it not be enough to get them past, you know, they made it to second round this time, but like to get them to the big dance, as it were. And so I'm just surprised that like instead of being like, all right, maybe we need to, after last year's, like instead of maybe being like we need to get an internal presence, maybe focus or like highlight Clint Capella a little bit more. It was like, nope, we're just gonna like we weren't in it enough. We need to be in it more.
That also puts a lot of stress on one of my boyfriends, Big Bob Covington.
Yeah.
Because he is not just called upon to be an elite defender. He is not just called upon to be able to switch and run all over the goddamn place. Shot too. Like if he goes cold and Eric Gordon goes cold and PJ can't get in, like if Russ and Harden are the only two who are scoring, that's going to be hard to win. Also, like you need everybody at their best. Now, Daryl Morey and D'Antoni are probably saying, yeah, well, it's the playoffs. We need that anyway. And you're like, yeah, okay, fine. But there are parts of games that are different from other parts of games. And you want to have the personnel for those downtimes also.
All right. And we are going to do a quick interruption here for a ad break. And now back to wherever we were currently in the show.
The Rockets, if they're going to beat LA, it'll be because of the guard play. The Rockets have extremely good guards, and the Lakers don't have any. But you just like how do you switch onto Anthony Davis? Like I don't understand.
Mm-hmm.
Like who even like the Rockets could get swept if AD ascends to actual brow level, like what we've been thinking he can do, and LeBron's going to be LeBron. There's no doubt in my mind that D'Antoni is a better coach than Frank Vogel, but I think that the Lakers have the two better players.
Oh,
like I think I'd choose LeBron and AD.
Yeah, especially when it comes to like clutchness. And I say that
or
in
just
quotes.
like there's, I still can't fucking believe that. I mean, I love the Sergeant. I love Westbrook. He should not have had the ball in his hands. Like, he just came back from injury anyway. Whoa, what are you doing, D'Antoni? What are you doing? He should get fired anyway. And you know what? So should Coach Bud, because, like, if you can't even look good just because you don't have Eric Bledsoe, that's on you. Like, you have to be able to do something. Come on.
Yeah. No, that is. I think if you're picking between the two of them, he needs to go more so than D'Antoni. Like,
but they're both good regular season coaches, you know, like they lead their teams to 50 wins.
Just like needs to get get out of here. If you're a team that wants to win a championship, I could give zero fucks about the regular season, right? All I need to do is just make it into the playoffs. I mean, that's what we've seen the Clippers do. That's what we've seen the Lakers do. That's what we saw Toronto do with Kawhi, where it was just like, we are going to make sure that we're good enough to make it to the playoffs and get a good seeding. And then we're going to, we're rested, we're ready to go, and then we're just going to fucking start sweeping people.
Like D'Antoni, to go back to baseball again, he's more like a manager than he is a coach. You know what I mean? Like he's there to make sure that the team survives through the season and that everybody feels good and that he's trying to bring out the best in everybody, but he doesn't call plays and he lets his stars just sort of make their own decisions and everybody else has to follow along and do the best they can. But he's there for like the locker room more than he is for whatever he does or does not do out on the court. The fact that he's been the coach of so many successful teams with so many good players does suggest to me that he is a good manager, that he does have good locker rooms, that he does try to bring out the best in his players. And the fact that Houston is playing really good defense right now is also credit should be given to D'Antoni for that. But like you have to change at a certain point. Like if they lose in this series, then Morey has to think about his decision-making process. And maybe they zig and zag because they just want to zig and zag sometimes. Mm-hmm. And maybe there are good reasons to have some traditional role players. But it's, knowing that team, well, actually the owner might be broke and the coach might not be back, even if they do well. Since it seems like the Pacers really want D'Antoni, which would be interesting.
Yeah.
But it's a frustrating team because you can see how they could be better, but it's
Right.
also really super difficult to actually go get those players. You know, like could Houston get Aaron Gordon? Would that help the team? You know, like would someone like Serge Ibaka be good for them? It's just such a mercenary team, and they throw people to the wolves so fucking hard, just like your
Yeah.
Boston Red Sox. Um,
Ugh.
so I don't know, but it seems like people like playing for Houston. Like
Yeah.
I think Chris Paul is like a rare dude where he's like, "Fuck that team."
I feel like Chris Paul is the rare dude where fuck any team that he's ever played for that he left with. Like, I don't think
He's
Chris
always
Paul's,
proven right, though. He is
It's-
always proven
it's
right. What
mildly
did
fair.
Houston need at the end of that game? They needed a guy like Chris Paul who could hit a three.
It's true. That is true. Natty, are you ready for the greatest transition in the podcast universe?
Oh, I hope so. Should I put on a prophylactic or a helmet or something? Like,
Yeah,
what's going
you should
on
be
here?
prepared.
Okay.
Speaking of coaches, the Nets hired Steve Nash as their next head coach. That's my transition.
Wait, who's not Phoenix?
What did I say? Did I say Phoenix? I said the Nets.
No. Steve Nash, the player?
Natty, have you been off the internet for the whole day?
Yeah, I was at work.
Oh, fuck work, man. Yes, Steve Nash, the player, is now the new head coach for the Brooklyn Nets.
New GM. No, Sean Marks. He's the head coach.
Yeah. Oh, I'm so glad that this is breaking news to you.
Wait, has
give
he
me
been
your
an
unbridled
assistant
thoughts.
somewhere? I thought he was a soccer guy.
Yeah,
Isn't
no, he
like,
hasn't done
doesn't he
shit.
own a soccer team or something?
Yeah.
He was working like in the front office for Golden State or something. Wasn't he doing?
He might have been, because there's some relationship he built with Durant there. So he might have been doing something.
Oh, sure.
I think this was entirely a Durant is like, I want my boy.
Okay. Another white head coach with no coaching experience got hired. Cool. Very,
Bingo.
very, very cool. Gosh, that's so awesome. Look, I love Nash. I don't want to feel bad about it because of that. I think he's a basketball genius. He's one of the best point guards ever. He always brought out the best in all of his other players. So that's weird,
something,
though, because like you have a team that should be that considers themselves like one of the 6 best teams when Kyrie and KD are healthy. I think why wouldn't you want to have a coach that matches their stature? But maybe that's what KD said. Like, you're a coach who can get along with me and Kyrie. If you can do that, then you can do anything, maybe. I guess. That's so weird. That's so weird.
It's super weird. It's super weird, especially, and you said it, and I want to bring up the tweet just so that I can make sure I give props to the man who deserves it. Let me see. Long too.
Dude, not like Ty Lue? Like, no.
Yeah, Tyler R. Tynes, who writes for The Ringer, tweeted this out, and basically it was just like the blackest coaching pool in years. Ty Lue, Ime Udoka, Sam Castle, Adrian Griffin, Mark Jackson, Steven Silas, Darvin Ham, Jamal Mosley, Jason Kidd, Wes Unseld, David Vattenpool, Roy Rogers, Nate McMillan, Alvin Gentry, Mike Brown, yada yada. Steve Nash gets the job, 0 experience. And to anyone who's going to be like, "Wow, don't make everything about race." Okay, you can't tell me that like any of those coaches were less qualified than Steve Nash. And I'm sure Steve Nash, I would hope that the Nets did their due diligence and sat him down for an interview and was like, "Hey, Steve, what's your plan for the team?" And Steve laid out his plan, and he got a sign off from KD and Kyrie. And he's like, "Great, this is going to be awesome. I'm super excited. This is going to be great." And the Nets are like, "We're in. We love this. We've done our due diligence." Like, I would hope that that's happened. But let's also not overlook the fact, when was the last time Kyrie got along with his coach? Like, are we sure that this is the time to be bringing in a first-time player coach who recently retired, who has played against both these guys, and is like, this isn't like he has been out and learning the craft and is coming to the NBA after coaching a couple of years in college or what have you, or the G League. It's like, this is first time coach Steve Nash is now coming in and coaching Kyrie Irving, known locker room destroyer. I'm not entirely sold that you can be like, oh, why do you have to make everything about race? It's because everything is about race, you dumbass.
Think about it this way. Can you name a black coach without any head coaching experience that has been hired just out of the blue?
Yeah, I can't. Can you?
I mean, generally, I don't think you should hire people with no experience. But okay, let me try to give
generally a good rule of thumb.
So let me try to give, because I do love Steve Nash, and in a vacuum, this could be a really great signing. Let me give one good reason why I think Steve Nash would be an appropriate person to have there. He was a player that dealt with injuries his entire career, and he sort of had to change how he played, and he was very conscious about diet and stretching and, like just trying to keep your body in peak condition as much as you can while the injuries accumulate. Maybe that's why you bring him to Brooklyn, because
you're dealing with two
Kyrie
players
and
there,
KD.
Kyrie and
Yeah. Also, Steve Nash is NBA royalty as well. He should be. And so, like, I don't want to diminish him because of the context in which we find ourselves, which is that, like, people, teams should be hiring more people of color.
Yes.
That's just going without saying. And if instead of hiring a person of color with massive amounts of experience, like Alvin Gentry, you hire a white person with no experience, even though it's Steve Nash,
Right.
That's a little tough. But there's
Steve Nash might be a great first-time head coach. He might be a big success for the Nets. This could be a great move for them. But you can't look at this hiring and not recognize that he is the beneficiary of white privilege to have gotten this job, right?
Yeah, and he doesn't have a ring.
Right.
Lue has a ring, but Lue and Kyrie maybe are not simpatico.
Yeah, I don't know if
this could just come down to your star players saying, this is the guy we want.
Which
and
is fair.
Since Brooklyn did that with DeAndre Jordan, yeah, if you look at it from that point of view, then it's actually black agency. Like, we're doing exactly what our stars and best players, these doctors of basketball, are advising us to do. I imagine Steve Nash is fairly expensive. So maybe we are looking at it sort of backwards, but in the context of our times, it's hard to see this and be like, oh, cool, another white guy got a job.
Yeah. And I think it's all the power to Steve Nash. Like, hopefully things work out for him. It worked out pretty well for Steve Kerr, so it's not to say that it's a recipe for disaster or that team should never do this. It's just like, you can wish the best for him and be like, that was maybe an iffy hiring by the Nets, but like, hopefully it works, and still recognize that there were definitely powers that be, primarily, white privilege, that helped propel Nash into the gig. So, anywho, that was the hot
you know
news
what, man?
for the day.
If you're Kyrie, you saw what teams did for LeBron. Well, you saw what Cleveland did for LeBron.
You saw Cleveland, and that might be playing.
Like, just cycle through coaches. Who cares? Fuck them. Like, none of those. You're not. It's so rare to have a coach that's more important than a player. It's so fucking rare.
Yeah.
And you really, like, I would choose KD and Kyrie over almost any. Like, I know that there were rumors that Popovich could be the Brooklyn coach, which I sort of thought was funny, because it was like, that doesn't really seem realistic to me. But there are good reasons to hire someone who is not white. And it's not just for window dressing, and it's not just for social justice, and it's not just because BLM and everything that's going on right now. It's because the league is weakened when they don't allow opportunity for a segment of their league. Like there should be a female coach, maybe. Like they should be trying to open up all of these jobs, because you know that you're missing out on opportunities. You know you are.
Yeah, and who's Becky Hammond? She, I mean, she coached when Pop was out for a little bit, and like keep that, like, you know, she keeps
her name comes up every time there's a coaching vacancy, but it's like that's maybe just like the woman getting thrown in there and ESPN like, hey, you're our partner, so we're gonna make like look at what people actually do. They tend to fire black coaches. Alvin Gentry and Nate McMillan both got fired, even though both their teams went to the playoffs, or went to the bubble at least. Sorry. Also, I feel like Alvin Gentry did a good job. I still don't really understand why they did that. Nate McMillan got extended and then got fired 2 weeks later. But I do sort of feel, even though I think Nate McMillan is a good coach for a certain type of team, that team should be going fast, and that's not how he coaches.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Before we wrap up the pod, just wrap up this segment too, Natty. I'm just on my podcast game right now. One coach in the NBA who you would take over KD and Kyrie, if there is one.
So it would be like, I'm the Detroit Pistons, and through magic, I have two options. Either I get Kevin Durant and Kyrie, or I get Popovich, Doc, Nurse, Spo. Who else?
Oh, see, I think Kerr and I think Stevens are on that list. And Stevens, I think, is at the bottom of the list. I'm being Dr. Pete. I think Stevens is at the bottom of the list. I think Kerr is near the top of that list, in my opinion.
I was a little disappointed in Golden State's play before the Rona hit. I thought that this was going to be like a blue chips kind of season for Kerr, where it's like, I just have terrible players, and this is going to be my favorite coaching season ever. And I was a little disappointed that they didn't do better. Also, I would much rather have Draymond Green as my coach than Steve Nash, but whatever. He's still playing.
I actually like that a lot.
But
then KD and Draymond, you don't want that kind of headbutting as a coach players.
I just don't really think that I would take any. Like, if you take Spo, then I guess you're taking the Miami Heat culture with you, and I respect that culture. Extreme, like they know how to get the most out of their players and to put their players into winning position. Like, I can't really think, like Goran Dragic, he's been there for 7 years though, and he was injured for 3 of them. But you know, like that, he was considered sort of a star when they traded for him.
They've been a team that, regardless who's come through there, they've always been not like championship contenders, but like Eastern playoff contenders.
Yeah, like Zoe
and
Morning.
That comes down to coaching.
Totally.
Same thing with Brad Stevens, where it's like whomever the Celtics were rolling out there, including the days of, you know, hot garbage Celtics, where, it's like it was still exciting. It was still, and let me tell you, as someone who experienced that, you would be lucky to have Brad Stevens coaching this Pistons team. It would be a joy. You would have no expectations, and he would come up with some crazy ass shit. And when it worked, you'd lose your goddamn mind.
I really like Dwayne Casey, actually. I think that the roster was weird this year. Like, he develops players. He's good. I like that. I'm really glad that he's there with Sekou Doumbouya.
Coach of the year, and then got fired.
Dude. Like, that's sort of why I feel like D'Antoni could get canned even if they win. Because it's like, well, sorry. You take the players. You absolutely take the players. They matter so much more.
Yeah.
Like,
we were dipping our toe into that hypothetical pool, and I thought,
oh wait, Tom Thibodeau. Yeah, I'll take him. Yeah, I'm sorry, I forgot.
Naturally.
Right. God, damn, how the fuck
Tom
okay.
Tom Thibodeau and Jeff Van Gundy.
Jesus H, mother loving God Christ. My God,
those,
dude.
Those
Wait.
are the coaches you need.
Before we go,
Yeah.
I am seeing that I asked you, okay, real question, all in caps. This was last night when I was drinking.
Yeah, this is
real question, all in caps. Would you trade Jaylen Brown for Bradley Beal?
God, no. Jaylen Brown's going nowhere. I want Jaylen Brown. Can I say something that's going to just absolutely impossibly blow your mind?
Yeah, please.
Did you like that? Absolutely, possibly.
Like
there is like 30% of me that would keep Jaylen Brown over Jason Tatum.
That's a good sign, dude. That's a good no. That's what you want to have. Like that means that that's how hard you love those players. I would trade the whole team except for Marcus Smart. Everybody else.
God, Marcus. Jesus Christ. That fucking oh my God.
Longest tenured Celtic. Like he's by the time he's 30, he's gonna be it'll be like him and Bill Russell.
And he just drained 5 threes in a row to just bring them
after
back.
being so cold in the first. God, what a monster! What an absolute monster!
So good at basketball.
I want him and Patrick Beverley to be on the same team.
I
want Grit and Grind Grizzlies back. God damn it! I want Zebo to come back. I want Trick or Treat Tony Allen to come back.
That was a good squad.
I mean, your Celtics just look. The fact that you have time. So here's what you guys. We were concerned about.
We talk about how fucking good Time Lord is. We need to wrap this show up, Natty. Stop getting me on the Celtics before we go.
But that's the kind of big man, quote unquote big man that Houston would love to have.
Yes, he has looked so good that series. I mean, and I'm saying so good really in terms of in terms of like the expectations for him and from the national media and from Boston. It's just like oh my God, he is exceeding them. He is coming in playing serviceable minutes and doing so much more with them than I was expecting. And I love to see it.
Like you guys and the Heat look like that would be a better Eastern Conference Finals series. Like it would be more interesting.
My God, it'd be so much more fun
than Bucks Raptors. But yeah, the Bucks look bad and the Raptors looked bad in the first game, but Lowry was hurt, I think. And
I think the Celtics Raptors have the much better chance of becoming a series. It just seems like the Bucks just don't have it.
I mean, the fact that they're running into the Heat just shows how vitally important perimeter defense is, especially with a good shooting team. Also, like Giannis versus Bam, that's rough. That's been rough for Giannis.
Maybe guard Jimmy Butler. Just throwing it out there. Throwing it out there, buddy. You want to win Defensive Player of the Year? Hard. Maybe go shut down their best player.
Dude, we were so right about the Heat before the season. We were so right about the Heat. They're deadly. Good for them.
They're really good. And I'm excited because I actually really like this Heat team. I like everyone on it.
For sure, totally.
Normally I hate them, but I like this team.
It would be amazing if Jimmy was in the finals. That would be incredible. Middle finger to 3 other teams.
I will say, and this is, I promise, the last thing.
Okay.
If the Lakers make it to the finals, I do not want the Celtics in the finals. I do not want the Kobe aura on me.
I thought it was because like you thought the Celtics would beat them and you want LeBron to get a ring. Oh, I read that all wrong. That's not sweet at all. You bastard. What's wrong with you?
I don't want to. Yeah. I just feel like the stars are aligning for the Lakers and I don't want to have it come against the Celtics. I
think that's so funny because I think that the Lakers versus Rockets could look like Giannis versus the Heat, where it's like, who's guarding who in this series? Is LeBron guarding Harden? Is that really going to happen?
I'm here for it.
Who's guarding Westbrook? And does that mean? And if it's like it's not AD,
Danny?
Yeah, it's Danny Green. That's who. It has to be. He has to step up.
Yep.
Oh, and they might get Rondo back.
We'll see. Lots of NBA action still to go down, and that, my friends, is why you tune in. And you make sure you subscribe to the Fake Teams podcast, wherever you get your podcasts, iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher. That is how you'll not only get us downloaded into your beautiful podcast feeds, but also our fantasy baseball and our fantasy football shows. And fantasy football, my friends, if you play, it's coming hot. So make sure you're tuning into that. Make sure to follow us on Twitter at TheLong2Pod. Natty, have yourself a good week.
You do the same, buddy. Talk to you next time.